Hi there, tonight we transport you to ancient Persia, where the sun dips low over Persepolis, casting golden rays across towering stone columns and intricate carvings of lions and lotus flowers. You stand at the edge of the women's quarters, a labyrinth of perfumed halls where silk curtains sway in the warm evening breeze. The air hums with whispered conversations and the soft clink of gold jewelry. It's a world of opulence and secrets, where women wield influence in ways you'd never expect. Fair warning though, navigating this maze of customs and expectations might leave you dizzy. You probably won't survive a day without tripping over a royal decree or two. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. Are you drifting off in London at midnight or relaxing in Tokyo at dawn? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push past a heavy curtain, stepping into the heart of Persepolis' women's quarters. The floor beneath your feet is cool marble, polished to a mirror shine, reflecting flickering oil lamps that cast dancing shadows on the walls. Around you, women move with purpose. Some adjust their flowing robes, others clutch clay tablets etched with cuneiform. This isn't just a pretty backdrop. It's a bustling hub where queens, concubines, and noble women shape the empire's future, often without stepping into the public eye. Historians note that Persepolis, built around 515 BCE under Darius I, was designed to awe, with its grand staircases and massive gateways. But the women's quarters, that's where the real intrigue brews. You notice a young woman, maybe a noble's daughter, gliding past with a bronze mirror in hand. She's checking her reflection, but her eyes dart nervously, as if she's memorizing every face in the room. Here's a quirky tidbit. Persian women sometimes used mirrors not just for vanity but as discreet signaling devices, flashing reflections to pass messages across crowded halls. Scholars debate whether this was a common practice or just a clever trick of the elite. Either way, it's the kind of subtle power play that defines this place. You weave through the crowd, catching snippets of old Persian, a language that sounds like a melody wrapped in gravel. The women here aren't just decorations, they're daughters of satraps, sisters of generals, and sometimes spies for the king himself. One woman, clad in a robe dyed with rare Tyrian purple, pauses to adjust a golden diadem. She's probably someone important, maybe even a relative of the great king. You can't help but wonder, what's her story? Is she plotting a marriage, alliance, or just trying to survive another day in this gilded cage? The air grows heavier with the scent of myrrh and rosewater. You pass a low table where a group of women share a platter of pistachios and dried figs. They laugh softly, but their eyes are sharp, scanning for eavesdroppers. Life here demands constant vigilance. A wrong word could spark a feud, or worse, a royal tantrum. You'd think living in a palace would be all lounging on silk cushions, but nope. It's more like playing chess with your life as the stakes. Funny. Thing is, you're already exhausted just imagining it, and we've only just begun. You turn a corner and spot a massive tapestry depicting a lion hunt. The threads shimmer in the lamplight, each stitch a testament to the weaver's skill. Women in Persia often oversaw such crafts, their hands shaping the empire's art while their minds navigated its politics. Historians still argue whether these tapestries hid coded messages, maybe troop movements or royal secrets woven into the patterns. It's a wild idea, But in a place like this, nothing's too far-fetched. As you linger, a servant offers you a clay cup of watered wine. You sip it, tasting the faint tang of pomegranate. The drink's a reminder that even in luxury, nothing's quite as it seems. The women around you, with their kohl-lined eyes and practiced smiles, are masters of illusion. They're not just surviving, they're thriving in a system stacked against them. And you're just a visitor, trying to keep up without stepping on a royal ego. Good luck with that. You leave the bustling women's quarters behind, your sandals whispering against the marble as you step into a quieter wing of Persepolis' palace. The air here feels heavier, charged with the weight of ambition. You're now in the shadow of the royal women, the queens and princesses who wield power that ripples across the empire. Imagine a chessboard where every move could topple a dynasty. That's the game these women play, and you're about to peek at their strategies. The walls around you gleam with glazed tiles, each one painted with winged sphinxes and lotus blooms. A faint scent of sandalwood lingers, probably from incense burning in a hidden alcove. You're not just a visitor anymore. You're a fly on the wall, eavesdropping on history's most exclusive club. Picture Atrosa, daughter of Cyrus the Great and wife of Darius I. She's not just a name in dusty scrolls. She's a force. Around 490 BCE, she helped secure her son Xerxes as the next great king, outmaneuvering rivals with a mix of charm and steel. You can almost see her now, seated on a cushioned throne, her dark eyes scanning a room of nervous advisors. Her voice, low and deliberate, could shift the fate of nations. Queens like her didn't just sit pretty, they shaped policy, brokered alliances, and sometimes whispered war into the king's ear. You'd think being a queen means endless banquets, but it's more like juggling flaming torches while everyone hopes you'll slip. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Persian queens kept pet leopards, trained to lounge at their feet during court sessions. It wasn't just for show. Those sharp claws sent a message. Cross me, and you'll regret it. Historians still argue whether Atossa herself had one, or if it was her daughter-in-law Amastris who favored the feline flair. Either way, you're glad you're not close enough to test the theory. One wrong step, and your leopard lunch. You pause by a massive window overlooking the city. Below, Persepolis sprawls under a twilight sky, its rooftops glowing like scattered embers. The queen's influence stretches far beyond these walls. They often managed vast estates, controlling land and tribute from distant satrapies. You imagine Atossa reviewing clay tablets, her fingers tracing cuneiform reports of grain yields or silver taxes. It's not glamorous, but it's power. Every decision she makes trickles down to farmers, merchants, and soldiers. You try to wrap your head around it, but honestly, you'd probably misplace a tablet and start a riot. A soft laugh escapes you as you picture yourself in her place, fumbling with royal seals while a leopard glares. The thought's absurd, but it grounds you. These women weren't gods. They were human, balancing fear and ambition like anyone else. You move deeper into the hall, passing a bronze statue of Ahura Mazda, the Zoroastrian god whose winged disk seems to watch your every step. Religion shaped these queens' lives, too. They weren't just political players. They were spiritual symbols, expected to embody the empire's divine favor. Talk about pressure. You're stressed just thinking about it, and you don't even have a crown. You notice a group of scribes huddled nearby, their styluses scratching furiously. One glances up, his eyes narrowing as if you're an intruder. You're not supposed to be here, not really. This is the Queen's domain, where secrets are currency. You recall that quirky mirror trick from the women's quarters. Maybe the Queens used something similar, flashing signals to allies across the palace. It's a stretch, but in this nest of intrigue, you wouldn't bet against it. You take a step back, blending into the shadows. Better not draw attention when the stakes are this high. The floor beneath you shifts to a mosaic of turquoise and gold, depicting a royal procession. You trace the tiles with your gaze, imagining the queens, leading such parades, their robes trailing like rivers of silk. They weren't just figureheads. They were the empire's backbone, often outlasting their husbands and sons. You can't help but admire their grit, even if you'd rather nap than navigate their world. As you linger, the distant sound of a lyre drifts through the air, a reminder that even queens found moments of calm. Or maybe it's just wishful thinking. You slip away from the Queen's lofty halls, your footsteps muffled by thick wool rugs as you enter a more secluded part of Persepolis. This is the harem, a world shrouded in mystery and misunderstanding. The word itself conjures images of lounging, beauties and endless intrigue, but the reality is far more complex. You're about to uncover the lives of concubines and wives, women whose days blend devotion, ambition, and quiet rebellion. The air here is cooler, heavy with the scent of jasmine from hanging braziers. Painted walls depict gardens that don't exist, a cruel tease for those rarely allowed outside. You feel the weight of unseen eyes, as if the very stones are judging. Your presence, the harem, isn't just a room. It's a tightly controlled system, established under rulers like Xerxes the First around 480 BCE, to manage the king's vast network of wives and concubines. These women, often daughters of allied nobles or conquered kings, were both pawns and players in Persia's political game. You picture a young concubine, her hair braided with lapis beads, practicing a smile she need for the king's next visit. Her life hinges on his favor, but she's no damsel. She's memorizing every rumor, every glance, to secure her place. You'd think it's all romance and luxury, but it's more like surviving a royal reality show with no escape. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some concubines kept tiny clay figurines, secretly carved to resemble their rivals, as charms for luck or petty curses. Historians still argue whether these were common or just gossip from Greek travelers who loved exaggerating Persia's exotic ways. Either way, you can't help but smirk, imagining a concubine muttering over a lumpy clay doll. You wouldn't dare try it yourself. One wrong move here, and you're out of favor faster than you can say royal tantrum. You pause by a low cedar bench, its cushions embroidered with silver thread. A woman sits nearby, her fingers tracing a gold armlet. She's a secondary wife, maybe from a distant satrapy like Bactria, married to seal an alliance. Her role is clear: produce heirs, stay loyal, and don't cause a scene. But her eyes tell a different story, sharp and restless. She's not just waiting for the king, she's plotting her children's future, maybe even her own rise. You recall Atasa's influence from the royal wing. Some harem women followed her lead, wielding soft power through sons or whispered advice. You're impressed, but also exhausted. Plotting all day sounds like a headache. A soft clatter draws your attention. A servant drops a bronze tray, spilling dates across the floor. The room tenses, but the woman on the bench waves it off with a practiced smile. Discipline here is strict, yet moments of kindness slip through. You imagine the harem as a pressure cooker, where alliances form over shared meals or late-night talks. These women aren't just rivals, they're each other's confidants, sometimes even friends. You try to picture yourself in their place, but honestly, you'd probably spill the dates and start a feud. The walls around you shimmer with inlaid shells, reflecting lamplight like a starry sky. It's beautiful, but it's a cage. Most women here rarely leave, their world confined to these rooms and guarded courtyards. You hear a faint giggle from behind a screen, probably younger concubines swapping stories. It's a reminder that joy exists, even in confinement. You can't help but chuckle, thinking of your own life. At least you can binge a show without a eunuch guard glaring at you. As you move deeper, you notice a small alcove with a loom. A concubine weaves slowly, her fingers steady despite the late hour. The harem's women often mastered crafts, their work adorning palaces or fetching high prices in markets. Their skill was a quiet rebellion, proof they were more than ornaments. Historians debate how much freedom these women truly had to sell their goods. Some say it was a rare privilege. Others argue it was tightly controlled. You don't know who's right, but you respect the hustle. You'd probably tangle the threads and call it a day. You step out of the harem's cloistered shadows, your senses still buzzing from its guarded whispers, and find yourself in the sunlit streets of Susa, another of Persia's grand capitals. It's dawn, and you're trailing a noble woman through her day, her life, a delicate dance of duty and defiance. The air hums with the scent of baking flatbread and the distant bleat of goats. Around you, merchants hawk dyed linens, and children dart through alleys, their laughter bouncing off mud brick walls. This isn't the gilded cage of Persepolis. Susa's alive, pulsing, and you're about to see how a woman navigates its rhythm. Her day starts early, and you're already lagging behind by 500 BCE. Susa was a hub of the Achaemenid Empire, its palaces and markets linking east and west. A noblewoman here, perhaps the wife of a satrap or a court official, didn't just manage a household, she oversaw estates, mediated disputes, and kept the family's status intact. You watch her, let's call her Anahita, stride toward her courtyard, her robe catching the morning light. She's up before the sun, checking grain stores while servants scurry to avoid her sharp gaze. You'd think she gets to sip wine all day, but nope. She's basically running a small empire, and you're winded just watching. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some noblewomen in Susa carried tiny bronze seals, etched with their personal symbols, to stamp clay tablets for trade or letters. It was like a signature, but fancier, and losing it was a disaster. Historians still argue whether these seals were status symbols or practical tools for women managing far-flung properties. Either way, you imagine Anahita patting her belt, double-checking her seals there. You'd probably drop yours in a well and spend the day panicking. You follow her into a shaded courtyard where she inspects a stack of wool bales. Her fingers trace the fibers, testing their quality before nodding to a servant. She's not just picky. Her household supplies the palace, and one bad batch could tarnish her name. You notice her pause, glancing at the sky as if calculating the hours left in her day. There's a rhythm to her routine. Morning inspections, midday meetings with scribes, then evening prayers at a fire altar. You try to keep up, but your modern brain's begging for a coffee break. Funny thing is, she'd probably think your life's too soft, all that sitting and scrolling. The courtyard hums as servants prepare for a small banquet. Anahita directs them with quiet commands, arranging platters of roasted lamb and pomegranate syrup. She's hosting minor nobles tonight, a chance to strengthen alliances. You recall the harem's tense alliances, how women there swapped secrets over figs. Out here, it's less cloistered, but no less strategic. She's playing the same game, just with better ventilation. You can't help but admire her poise, though you'd probably trip over a rug and spill the syrup. A breeze carries the sound of a street musician's reed flute, and you catch Anahita's faint smile. She's human. After all, not a machine. Her day isn't all work. She'll steal moments to visit her children or gossip with a cousin. But even those moments are calculated, her words chosen to maintain her family's edge. Historians debate how much autonomy women like her truly had. Some say they were near equals to men in managing estates. Others argue they were tethered by male overseers. You don't know the truth, but watching her, you'd bet on her outsmarting most of the men around. You trail her to a small shrine in her home, where she lights a flame and murmurs a prayer. It's a private ritual, a nod to Zoroastrian traditions that anchor her world. The fire's glow softens her face, and for a moment you see the weight she carries. You're struck by how her life mirrors the queen's and concubines in its blend of power and constraint. You chuckle, imagining yourself trying to juggle her tasks. You'd probably burn the bread, lose the seal, and offend a noble before lunch. As the flame flickers, you realize her day's far from over, and you're already ready for a nap. You linger in Susa's warm glow, leaving Anahita's bustling courtyard behind as you follow her to a private chamber, where the air shimmers with the promise of transformation. It's mid-morning, and you're about to dive into the world of Persian fashion, where noble women like her adorn themselves with intricate jewelry and flowing robes that tell stories of wealth and status. The room is a treasure trove. Cedar chests overflow with silks, and a bronze mirror reflects the flicker of oil lamps. You hear the soft clink of bangles as Anahita prepares for her day's public duties. This isn't just dressing up, it's armor for the social battlefield, and you're here to try it on. In the Achaemenid Empire, around 500 BCE, clothing was a language. Noble women wore layered robes of linen and silk, often dyed with saffron or indigo, their hems embroidered with gold thread. You watch Anahita drape a pleated gown over her shoulders, its fabric catching the light like a desert sunrise. Each fold is deliberate, pinned with amethyst brooches to signal her rank. Her jewelry is no less strategic. Turquoise earrings from distant mines, a choker of carnelian beads, and a diadem that screams, "Don't cross me." You'd think it's all vanity, but it's politics. One wrong accessory, and you're the talk of Susa's elite for all the wrong reasons. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Persian women applied a paste of crushed malachite to their eyelids, a green shimmer that doubled as a supposed charm against evil spirits. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread beauty trend or a ritual reserved for religious festivals. Either way, you imagine Anahita dabbing it on, her steady hand betraying none of the pressure she's under. You'd probably sneeze, meet application, and end up with a face like a startled peacock. You step closer, peering into a clay jar filled with coal. Anahita lines her eyes with it, creating a dramatic sweep that makes her gaze piercing. The coal's not just for looks. It cuts the desert glare, a practical trick for a woman who might visit her estates under the midday sun. You recall the harems, concubines, their own adornments, a quieter echo of this splendor. Out here, Anahita's style is bolder, meant to be seen by merchants and nobles. You try to picture yourself in her place, but the weight of all that gold would probably tip you over. You chuckle, imagining the servants' faces as you flail under a diadem. A servant enters, offering a tray of perfumes, myrrh, rosewater, and something sharp like crushed mint. Anahita chooses the rosewater, dabbing it behind her ears. The scent's a subtle weapon, softening her approach in negotiations later. You inhale deeply, feeling a bit woozy from the mix. Fashion here isn't just about beauty. It's a performance. Every detail curated to maintain her family's prestige. You notice her pause, adjusting a bracelet etched with a lion, the symbol of Persian royalty. It's a nod to the queens like Atasa, whose influence you glimpsed in Persepolis. The connection's not lost on you, and you're starting to see how these women's lives intertwine across the empire. The room grows quieter as Anahita slips on soft leather sandals, their soles dyed red with madder root. Footwear, too, carries meaning. Only the elite wear dyed leather, a luxury you'd never notice until you step on Susa's dusty streets beside her. Historians debate how much freedom women had in choosing their attire. Some say husbands dictated every detail. Others argue noble women like Anahita had near total control, using fashion to assert their will. Watching her, you'd bet on the latter. She moves with the confidence of someone who knows her power, even if it's cloaked in silk. You linger by a chest, tempted to touch a sapphire necklace, but thinking better of it. A servant eyes you warily, and you back off, grinning sheepishly. You're no noble, just a curious traveler in this perfumed world. As Anahita sweeps toward the door, her robes rustling like a gentle breeze, you realize her day's just beginning. You're already dazzled, and honestly, you'd rather nap than face the scrutiny of Susa's elite. But there's no rest yet. Her world pulls you forward, one glittering step at a time. You trail Anahita out of her scented chamber, the shimmer of her robes fading as you're swept into a grand hall in Persepolis, where a royal wedding unfolds under a canopy of stars. The air buzzes with anticipation, thick with the aroma of saffron and burning cedar. You're no longer in Susa's busy streets. You're a silent guest at a ceremony binding to noble houses, where a bride's every step is a move in the empire's intricate dance. Torches cast golden light on tapestries, woven with peacocks and suns, and you feel the weight of tradition pressing down. This isn't just a marriage. It's a contract sealed in silken fire, and you're about to witness its rituals. In the Achaemenid Empire, around 490 BCE, royal weddings were spectacles of power. The bride, often a daughter of a satrap or allied king, was a living treaty, her union tying provinces to the great king's throne. You watch the bride, let's call her Roxana, glide forward, her veil shimmering with tiny gold discs. Her groom, a prince from a western satrapy, stands rigid, his eyes fixed on the fire. Altar ahead. The ceremony blends Zoroastrian rites with political theatre, prayers to Ahura Mazda, offerings of barley, and vows sworn over a sacred flame. You'd think it's all romance, but it's more like signing a merger with extra incense. You're already overwhelmed, and you're just watching. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Persian brides carried a pomegranate, its seeds tucked into their veils as a charm for fertility. If one fell out mid-ceremony, it was bad luck, and you can bet the gossips noticed. Historians still argue whether this was a universal custom or specific to elite families. Either way, you imagine Roxana clutching hers tightly, her fingers trembling. Under the veil, You'd probably drop the fruit and trip over your robe, turning the wedding into a comedy. You stand among the crowd, nobles in turquoise tunics murmuring behind their hands. Roxana's veil is lifted, revealing coal-lined eyes, and a practiced smile. She's young, maybe 16, but her poise rivals Anahita's. The priest chants, his voice low and rhythmic, as he ties a silken cord around the couple's wrists, symbolizing unity. You recall the harem's concubines, some married in simpler rites. Here, every gesture is amplified, meant to dazzle the court. You notice Roxana's mother, a stern figure in sapphire robes, watching from the sidelines. She's the real strategist, ensuring her daughter's marriage strengthens their family's grip on power. You're impressed, but you'd rather avoid her gaze. She looks like she could outmaneuver a leopard. A musician strums a sitar, its notes weaving through the chants. The crowd sways, caught in the ritual's spell. You catch a whiff of rosewater as servants pass with trays of honeyed cakes, meant to sweeten the couple's future. You're tempted to grab one, but a guard's glare keeps you in check. Funny thing is, you're starting to feel like an intruder, a modern soul stumbling through this ancient pageant. You chuckle, imagining explaining your genes to these nobles. They'd probably think you're a barbarian spy. The ceremony shifts. As the couple circles the fire altar 7 times, each step sealing their vows. It's hypnotic, the flames casting shadows that dance across Roxana's veil. You recall Anahita's rosewater perfume, a subtle tool of influence. Roxana's using similar tricks, her every move calculated to charm the court. Historians debate how much agency brides like her had in these matches. Some say they were pawns. Others argue they negotiated terms behind the scenes. Watching Roxana's steady steps, you'd wager she's no mere puppet. She's playing the game, just like the queens and noblewomen you've met. As the rite ends, the crowd erupts in soft cheers, tossing rose petals that flutter like snow. Roxana and her groom step onto a carpet strewn with barley, a wish for prosperity. You linger, watching the nobles disperse, their whispers already spinning tales of the new alliance. The fire altar's glow fades, but the weight of this moment lingers. You're struck by how these rituals, so distant, echo the power plays of Persepolis' halls. You'd love to stay and eavesdrop, but your eyes are heavy. This wedding's just the beginning, and you're already dreaming of a nap. You drift away from the wedding's fading cheers, the scent of rose petals lingering as you find yourself in a quiet chamber within Persepolis' sprawling palace. The morning sun filters through latticed windows, casting intricate shadows. On a tiled floor, you're here to sit in on a private lesson for a young princess, a rare glimpse into the education of Persia's elite women. The air carries a faint whiff of ink and papyrus, and you hear the soft scratch of a stylus on clay. This isn't a dusty classroom. It's a crucible where a girl is shaped into a future queen, and you're about to see how. The princess, maybe 12, sits cross-legged on a cushion, her eyes sharp with curiosity. You settle nearby, trying not to disturb the delicate balance of this moment. Around 500 BCE, noble women in the Achaemenid Empire received tailored education, especially if they were royal heirs. Princesses learnt reading, cuneiform writing, and the art of persuasion, skills to navigate court politics. You watch the princess, let's call her Artistone, recite a passage from a clay tablet, her voice steady despite the tutor's stern gaze. Her lessons cover more than words: astronomy to read the stars, mathematics for estate management, and poetry to charm allies. You'd think it's all fancy recitations, but it's grueling. She's training to outwit satraps, and you're already intimidated. One wrong answer, and you'd be hiding under the table. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some princesses were taught to play the barbat, a lute-like instrument, to perform at banquets. It wasn't just for fun. A well-played melody could sway a noble's loyalty. Historians still argue whether this was standard for all royal women or reserved for those destined for diplomatic marriages. Either way, you imagine Artistone strumming a few notes, her fingers fumbling under pressure. You'd probably snap a string and start a diplomatic incident. So you're happy just watching. The tutor, an older woman with silver-streaked hair, points to a star chart, quizzing Artistone on constellations. The princess traces Orion's belt, with her finger naming it in Old Persian. You're struck by her focus, a reminder of Anahita's calculated poise in Susa. Education here isn't about personal growth. It's about survival in a world where a woman's wit is her sharpest weapon. You recall Roxana's wedding, her every step a performance. Artistone's learning those steps now, her lessons a foundation for future alliances. You try to follow the tutor's explanation, but astronomy's not your thing. You're just glad there's no pop quiz. A servant slips in, offering a tray of dried apricots. Artistone takes one, her eyes never leaving the tablet. The tutor's voice softens, praising her progress, but there's an edge to it. Failure isn't an option for a princess. You notice a small clay seal on Artistone's belt, like Anahita's, etched with a crescent moon. It's a sign she's already trusted with minor duties, maybe approving household supplies. You chuckle, imagining yourself in her place, botching the math and over-ordering figs. The tutor would probably banish you to the stables. The room grows, warmer as the sun climbs. You catch a glimpse of a tapestry on the wall, depicting a lioness guarding her cubs. It's a subtle nod to the strength expected of royal women, like Atossa, whose shadow looms over these lessons. Artistone's training isn't just academic. She's learning to embody that lioness, fierce yet controlled. Historians debate how much influence educated princesses wielded later in life. Some say they were mere figureheads. Others argue they shaped policy through subtle counsel. Watching Artistone's quiet determination, you'd bet she'd leave her mark. You shift on, your cushion, feeling the weight of the room's expectations. The tutor recites a line of poetry, and Artistone repeats it, her voice gaining confidence. It's hypnotic, the cadence lulling you into a daze. You're starting to understand why these lessons matter. They're not just about knowledge. They're about crafting a woman who can hold her own in Persepolis' treacherous courts. You'd love to stay and hear her play the barbat, but your eyelids are heavy. This classroom's intensity is no match for your need for a nap, but Artistone's world pulls you deeper still. You ease out of the princess's sunlit chamber, the echo of her poetry fading as you step into the bustling chaos of a Susa bazaar, where the air thrums with shouted bargains and the Thames of cumin. It's midday, and you're shadowing a merchant's wife, a woman whose economic savvy keeps her family afloat in Persia's vibrant trade networks. Dust swirls around your sandals as you weave through stalls piled with saffron, amber, and bolts of linen. She moves with purpose, her bronze seal glinting at her belt, ready to barter for goods or seal a deal. This isn't the polished world of queens or brides. It's gritty, lively, and you're about to see how a woman holds her own in the empire's commercial heart. By 500 BCE, Susa was a crossroads of the Achaemenid Empire, its markets channeling goods from India to Egypt women like your guide. Let's call her Shirin, often managed household trade, negotiating prices or overseeing caravans when their husbands were away. You watch Shirin haggle over a sack of barley, her voice firm but laced with charm. She's not just buying grain. She's securing her family's status, ensuring they can host feasts or pay taxes. You'd think it's all shouting and coin. But it's strategy. One bad deal, and you're eating stale bread for a month. You're already sweating just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some merchant women used knotted cords, tied in specific patterns, to track debts or shipments, a kind of pre-paper spreadsheet. Historians still argue whether these were widely used or unique to certain families. Either way, you imagine Shirin deftly knotting a cord, her fingers moving like a weaver's. You'd probably tangle it into a knot worthy of a sailor's curse, then beg for a calculator. Good thing you're just observing. You follow her to a stall stacked with clay jars of olive oil. She inspects one, sniffing the contents before nodding. Her seal presses into a soft clay tablet, approving the purchase. You recall Anahit, seal in Susa, used for estate management. Shirin's is simpler, etched with a reed pattern, but it carries the same weight in this market. She's not noble, but her deals ripple outward, supplying households or even the palace. You're struck by her confidence, a contrast to the harem's guarded concubines. Here, power is loud, earned through quick wits and a sharp tongue. You try to keep up, but the crowd's dizzying, and you're tempted to hide behind a spice sack. A camel snorts nearby, unloading bales of wool as Shirin negotiates with a trader from Bactria. She gestures to a tablet, pointing out a discrepancy. In the weight, the trader grumbles but relents, and you can't help but grin. She's good. Her role isn't just domestic. She's a cog in Persia's vast economy, linking farmers to nobles. You recall Arterstone's lessons, preparing her for courtly intrigue. Shirin's education was the market itself, and she's mastered it. You chuckle, imagining yourself bartering. You'd probably trade a camel for a shiny rock and call it a win. The sun beats down, and Shirin pauses to sip from a clay cup, lightly watered wine. You catch a whiff of its tartness, grounding you in the moment. Her day's far from over. More deals, then home to tally accounts. Historians debate how much economic freedom women like her had. Some say they acted only under male authority. Others argue they ran independent ventures, especially as widows. Watching Shirin, you'd bet she bends the rules, slipping extra profit into her own purse. She's not defying the system, she's outsmarting it. You linger by a stall selling lapis beads, tempted to touch but wary of a merchant's glare. Shirin's already moving on, her basket heavier with goods. The bazaar's noise wraps around you, a lullaby of chaos. You're starting to see how these women, from queens to traders, weave Persia's strength. Shirin's no Atoza, but her work keeps the empire humming. You'd love to follow her home, see her tally those cords, but your feet ache. The market's pulse is hypnotic, and you're drifting, ready for a nap under a stall's awning. You slip away from the bazaar's clamor, Shirin's knotted cords fading into memory as you step into a sacred grove just outside Persepolis, where the air hums with reverence and the scent of burning cedar. It's dusk, and you're joining a group of priestesses preparing for a Zoroastrian fire ceremony, their robes glowing like embers in the fading light. The grove is small, ringed by cypress trees, with a stone altar at its center where a fire crackles, tended with meticulous care. These women aren't queens or merchants. They're spiritual guardians, and you're about to witness the rituals that anchor Persia's soul. The silence here feels alive, and you tread softly, wary of disturbing the sanctity. Around 500 BCE, Zoroastrianism was the Achaemenid Empire's guiding faith, and women, though rarely high priests, played vital roles in its rituals. You watch a priestess, let's call her Vera, sprinkle sandalwood into the fire. Her movements precise as she chants in Avestan, a language that feels like a whisper from the gods. Her role is to maintain the sacred flame, a symbol of Ahura light, never letting it die. This isn't just a ceremony. It's a cosmic duty, linking earth to the divine. You'd think it's all solemn chanting, but it's work. One stray spark, and you're scrambling to save the grove. You're already nervous just standing here. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some priestesses wore veils woven with silver threads, believed to channel divine energy during rituals. If a thread snagged, it was a bad omen, and you can bet the others noticed. Historians still argue whether this was standard practice or a flourish for royal ceremonies. Either way, you imagine Vera adjusting her veil, her fingers steady despite the pressure. You'd probably tear the fabric and spend the night apologizing to the gods. You settle near the altar, the fire's warmth brushing your skin. Vera's companions, all women, move in sync, offering barley and milk to the flames. Their chants rise, a hypnotic rhythm that pulls you deeper into the moment. You recall Anahita's private shrine in Susa, her quiet prayers a personal echo of this public rite. Here, the priestesses serve the empire, their rituals blessing crops, armies, and even the great king. You're struck by their calm, a contrast to Shirin's market hustle, but like her, they're indispensable, their work weaving Persia's spiritual fabric. You try to follow the chant, but it's like catching smoke. You're just glad no one's asking you to sing. A priestess passes you, her eyes kind but distant, as if she sees beyond the grove. She carries a clay vessel of rosewater, sprinkling it to purify the space. You catch its scent, grounding you in the ritual's rhythm. These women aren't just performers. They're scholars, trained in sacred texts and star patterns, their knowledge rivaling Artistone's lessons. You chuckle, imagining yourself memorizing Avestan. You'd probably mispronounce a prayer and summon a storm instead of a blessing. The fire flares as Vera adds a log, her face serene despite the heat. You notice her hands, calloused from years of tending flames, a reminder that this role demands sacrifice. She's not noble, likely born to a minor family, yet her work touches every Persian. Historians debate how much influence priestesses wielded. Some say they advised kings. Others argue they were sidelined in favor of male priests. Watching Vera, you'd bet she holds more sway than the scrolls admit. Her presence commands the grove, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a breeze, you shift, feeling the ground's coolness through your sandals. The chants soften, and the priestesses kneel, their veils shimmering like starlight. The ceremony's nearing its end, but its weight lingers, a reminder of the unseen forces these women channel. You recall Roxana's wedding, its fire altar a grander version of this one. The threads of Persia's women queens, traders, now priestesses keep intertwining, and you're starting to see their quiet strength. You'd love to stay, let the fire's glow lull you, but your eyelids droop. The grove's peace is too tempting, and you're drifting, ready for a nap by the altar. You ease away from the grove's sacred glow, the priestess's chants fading as you step into a dim, herb-scented room in Susa. where a healer tends to a feverish child. The air is thick with the tang of crushed mint and myrrh, and clay lamps cast a soft, flickering light. You're here to explore the medical practices of Persian women, who blend ancient wisdom with practical care in a world where illness could spell ruin. The healer, let's call her Zeba, moves with quiet confidence, her hands grinding herbs in a stone mortar. This isn't a palace or a market, it's a sanctuary of survival. And you're about to see how these women mend bodies and spirits. Around 500 BCE, Persian medicine was a mix of Zoroastrian ritual and empirical skill, with women often serving as healers for families or communities. Zeba's tools are simple: dried herbs, honey, and linen bandages, but her knowledge is vast, drawn from Babylonian texts and local tradition. You watch her press a damp cloth infused with willow bark to the child's forehead, her voice low, as she murmurs a prayer. This isn't just treatment, it's a delicate balance of science and faith, meant to soothe both patient and worried mother. You'd think it's all mystical chants, but it's work. One wrong herb, and you're brewing trouble instead of a cure. You're already anxious just standing here. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some healers used amulets shaped like scorpions, believed to ward off infection. If the string broke, it was a bad sign, and you can bet the patient noticed. Historians still argue whether these were common or mostly symbolic for elite households. Either way, you imagine Zeba tying one carefully, her fingers steady despite the child's restless stirring. You'd probably fumble the knot and drop it in the herb jar, making everyone nervous. You settle near a low table, where Zeba sorts bundles of dried chamomile and saffron. Her patient, a boy of about 7, whimpers softly, his mother hovering nearby. Zeba's calm is infectious, her every move deliberate as she mixes a paste of honey and turmeric for a minor wound. You recall Vera's fire rituals, how they blessed the empire's soul. Zeba's work is earthier, yet no less vital, keeping families whole in Susa's dusty streets. Her remedies echo Anahita's rosewater, a practical luxury turned to healing. You try to follow her recipe, but it's like deciphering a code. You're just glad no one's asking you to play doctor. A breeze slips through a reed screen, carrying the distant hum of the bazaar. Zeba pauses, offering the mother a clay cup of mint tea to ease her nerves. You catch its sharp scent, grounding you in the room's quiet intensity. These women aren't just healers. They're confidants, often called to births or deathbeds, their presence a bridge between life's edges. You chuckle, imagining yourself grinding herbs. You'd probably sneeze, scatter the chamomile, and turn the room into a spice storm. Hands move to the boy's arm, checking a bandage with a gentle touch. She's not noble, likely trained by her own mother, yet her skill rivals the palace physicians. Her work isn't just about herbs, it's about trust, built through years of soothing fevers and setting bones. Historians debate how much medical authority women held. Some say they were secondary to male doctors. Others argue they dominated household care, especially in rural areas. Watching Zeba, you'd bet she's the one families turn to first. Her quiet command fills the room, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for fresh air, you shift, avoiding a stack of clay jars that look dangerously tippable. The boy's fever seems to ease, his breathing steadier. Zeba smiles faintly, but her eyes stay sharp, scanning for signs of relapse. You're struck by how her role weaves into Persia's tapestry, alongside queens, traders, and priestesses. Her work is less visible, yet it binds communities. You'd love to stay, learn her recipes, but the room's warmth is lulling you. The scent of myrrh wraps around you like a blanket, and you're drifting, ready for a nap on the healer's floor. You slip away from Zeba's herb-scented room, the boy's steady breathing fading as you find yourself in a secluded courtyard in Persepolis, where a secretive birthing ceremony unfolds under a canopy of twilight stars. The air is heavy with the scent of frankincense and warm milk, and a low hum of women's voices weaves through the stillness. You're here to witness the rituals surrounding childbirth among Persia's elite, a moment both sacred and guarded. A noblewoman, surrounded by midwives and kin, reclines on a cushioned mat, her face a mix of resolve and exhaustion. This isn't a public spectacle. It's an intimate rite, and you're a silent observer, treading lightly in this woman's domain. Around 500 BCE, childbirth in the Achaemenid Empire was a blend of medical skill and spiritual tradition, especially for noble families. You watch the lead midwife, let's call her Mahin, prepare a clay bowl of pomegranate juice, believed to ease labor and honor fertility gods. The mother to be, perhaps a satrap's wife, grips a woven cord tied to a wooden beam, her breaths measured as Mahin chants softly. This ceremony is exclusive, reserved for elites who can afford midwives trained in Babylonian techniques. You'd think it's all serene prayers, but it's intense. One wrong move, and the room's delicate balance could shatter. You're already holding your breath, hoping you don't sneeze. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some midwives tucked a tiny silver charm, shaped like a crescent moon, under the mother's mat for luck. If it slipped out, it was a bad omen, and you can bet the women whispered about it. Historians still argue whether this was a widespread custom or unique to Persepolis' elite. Either way, you imagine Mahin checking the charm's place, her eyes sharp despite the late hour. You'd probably knock it loose and spend the night apologizing to everyone. You settle near a low brazier, its coals casting a warm glow across the courtyard. The women work in sync, one fanning the mother with a palm leaf, another offering sips of honeyed water. You recall Zeba's healing touch, how she soothed with herbs. Mahon's role is similar, but her focus is life's beginning, not its mending. She massages the mother's back with oil infused with saffron, a luxury echoing Anahita's rosewater. The rituals, steeped in Zoroastrian faith, with prayers to Anahita, the goddess of fertility, ensuring the child's soul is blessed. You try to follow the chants, but they're a soothing blur. You're just glad no one's asking you to deliver a baby. A soft cry breaks the tension, and the women exhale as one. The newborn, wrapped in linen, is placed on the mother's chest. Mahin inspects the cord, cutting it with a bronze knife polished to a gleam. The room feels lighter, but the midwives stay vigilant, checking for signs of trouble. You're struck by their skill, a contrast to the bazaar's bustle or the harem's intrigue. These women hold power over life itself, their hands guiding Persia's next generation. You chuckle, imagining yourself in Mahin's place. You'd probably faint at the first contraction and wake up to disapproving stares. The mother smiles faintly, her exhaustion giving way to relief. A servant brings a tray of dates and almonds, a small feast to restore strength. You catch their sweet scent, grounding you in the moment. Childbirth here isn't just a physical act, it's a social bond, tying women across classes in shared experience. Historians debate how much autonomy elite mothers had in these rites. Some say midwives held the real authority. Others argue noble women dictated every detail. Watching Mahone's quiet command, you'd bet she's the one steering this ship. Goddess or no. You shift, avoiding a stray pebble underfoot. The ceremony's winding down, the women's voices softening as they clean the space. The newborns. Cries fade to whimpers, and you feel the courtyard's calm settle over you. You recall Roxana's wedding, its fire altar, a public vow. This birth is private, yet no less vital, weaving another thread into Persia's tapestry. You'd love to stay, share the dates, but the frankincense is lulling you. The courtyards. Peace wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap under the starlit canopy. You glide away from the courtyard's tender glow, the newborn's cries softening as you find yourself in a rural village far from Persepolis' grandeur, where dust clings to your sandals and the air smells of sun-baked earth and barley. It's dawn, and you're trailing a farmer's wife, a woman whose life is carved from toil and quiet resilience. Her mud-brick home hums with the rhythm of daily tasks, grinding grain, tending goats, weaving straw mats. This isn't the world of queens or priestesses. It's the backbone of Persia, where common women sustain families through sheer grit. And you're about to walk a day in her worn leather shoes. Around 500 BCE, rural women in the Achaemenid Empire were the unsung engines of village life, managing households while men worked fields or served in armies. You watch your guide, let's call her Nasreen, knead dough for flatbread, her hands dusted with flour as she hums a tune older than the empire. Her work feeds not just her family but neighbors who trade labor for meals. This isn't glamorous. It's survival, woven into every cracked clay pot and patched robe. You'd think it's all endless chores, but it's community. One missed task, and the village feels it. You're already aching just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some rural women kept small clay tokens, shaped like birds, to tally grain shared with neighbors, a rustic accounting system. If one broke, it was bad luck, and you can bet the kids got blamed. Historians still argue whether these were common or unique to certain villages. Either way, you imagine Nasrin slipping one into her pocket, her calloused fingers brushing the clay. You'd probably lose yours in the goat pen and spend the day searching. Much to her amusement, you follow her to a small plot behind the house, where she checks rows of lentils under the rising sun. Her eyes scan for pests, her movements swift, as she pulls a wilted stalk. You recall Shirin's market hustle, how she bartered for barley. Nasrin's world is smaller, but her stakes are just as high. A bad harvest means hunger, and her family's 3 children depend on her. She pauses. To shoe a stray goat, her voice sharp but fond. You're struck by her balance of toughness and care, a contrast to Anahita's calculated poise. You try to keep up, but the heat's already making you woozy. You're just glad no one's asking you to weed. A neighbor calls out, offering a basket of figs in exchange for Nasreen's bread. She nods, her smile quick but genuine. These exchanges are her currency, binding the village tighter than any royal decree. You recall Mahoun's birthing ceremony, how women shared strength in crisis. Here, it's everyday acts, trading food, watching each other's kids, repairing roofs. You chuckle, imagining yourself bargaining. You'd probably trade all your figs for a single loaf and call it a deal, then trip over the goat. The sun climbs, and Nasrin heads to a communal well, her clay jug balanced on her shoulder. The water's for cooking, washing, and the goats, and she's not wasting a drop. You catch the jug's cool dampness as she passes, grounding you in her world's rhythm. Her life lacks the harem's intrigue or Zeba's healing craft, But it's no less vital. Rural women like her fed Persia's cities, their labor propping up the empire's wealth. Historians debate how much recognition they got. Some say they were invisible to the elite. Others argue their role was quietly revered. Watching Nazreen, you'd bet she doesn't care for fame, just a full granary. You linger by the well, tempted to splash your face, but wary of her glance. She's already hauling the jug back, her steps steady despite the weight. The village wakes around you, children laughing, a loom clacking nearby. You're starting to see how Nazrin's life, so different from Roxana's or Artistone's, still weaves into Persia's strength. Her hands, rough as the earth, hold her world together. You'd love to stay, share her bread, but the sun's warmth is lulling you. The village's hum wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap. By the well. You drift from Nazrin's sunlit village, the scent of fresh bread fading as you step into a shaded workshop in Persepolis, where the air hums with the clink of tools and the earthy smell of wet clay. It's mid-afternoon, and you're joining a group of female artisans painting pottery, their fingers stained with ochre and cobalt. The room is alive with quiet focus. Shelves line the walls, stacked with jars and bowls, each a canvas for stories of gods and kings. These women aren't nobles or healers. They're creators, shaping Persia's art, and you're about to dip your hands into their craft. Around 500 BCE, Persepolis was a hub of artistic production, and women, often from artisan families, played a key role in pottery and textile work. You watch a woman, let's call her Layli, dip a reed brush into a clay pot of blue glaze, tracing a winged lion onto a wide-mouthed jar. Her strokes are deliberate, each curve a nod to the empire's grandeur. These pieces aren't just decor. They'll grace noble tables or temple altars, carrying her skill across the empire. You'd think it's all serene brushwork, but it's precision. One slip, and the jar's ruined. You're already nervous just holding an imaginary brush. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some artisans hid tiny symbols, like a curled leaf, in their designs as secret signatures. If a noble spotted it, it could spark trouble, but most never noticed. Historians still argue whether these were acts of pride or quiet rebellion. Either way, you imagine Lele sneaking a leaf into her lion's mane, her lips twitching with mischief. You'd probably paint a lopsided lion and pass it off as abstract, then beg for a do-over. You settle near a low table, where Layli and her peers work in companionable silence. A younger artisan hums softly, shaping a clay bowl on a wooden wheel. You recall Nazreen's communal well, how village women shared tasks. This workshop feels similar, a sisterhood of craft where mistakes are fixed with a laugh or a quick glaze. Lale's jar takes shape, its lion now flanked by lotus flowers, a design echoing the palace's tiles. You're struck by how her work mirrors Anahita's robes, both weaving beauty into Persia's identity. You try to sketch the lion in your mind, but it's more housecat than regal. You're just glad no one's grading your art. A breeze slips through an open window, carrying the distant clang of a blacksmith. Layli pauses, wiping sweat from her brow with a clay-strict hand. Her life isn't easy, long hours, aching fingers, and the pressure to meet palace quotas. Yet her eyes spark with pride as she inspects her jar. You recall Zeba's healing herbs, how they soothed a fever. Layla's art soothes in its own way, telling stories that outlast empires. You chuckle, imagining yourself at the wheel. You'd probably spin a bowl into a pancake and call it a plate. The workshop hums as a woman passes a tray of watered wine, its tartness cutting the clay's dust. You catch its scent, grounding you in the moment. These artisans aren't just workers, they're historians. Their pottery preserving myths and daily life for future eyes. Historians debate how much creative freedom they had. Some say designs were strictly dictated. Others argue artisans slipped personal touches into every piece. Watching Lalay's careful leaf, you'd bet on the latter. Her quiet defiance fills the room, and you're in awe, even if you're itching for a chair. You shift, avoiding a stray shard on the floor. The women chat softly now, trading tips on glaze mixers. Their laughter is a bomb, a reminder that joy thrives even in labor. You're starting to see how Layla's craft, like Sheeran's bartering or Vera's prayers, binds Persia's heart. Her jars will travel farther than she ever will, carrying her name in secret. You'd love to stay, try a brushstroke, but the clay's scent is lulling you. The workshop's rhythm wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap among the pottery. You slip away from the pottery workshop's earthy hum, Lalay's painted lion fading as you step into the shadowed corridors of Persepolis' royal palace, where the air crackles with whispered schemes. It's late evening, and you're eavesdropping on a queen's plot, a dangerous dance of power hidden behind silk curtains. The hall is dim, lit by flickering oil lamps that cast long shadows on walls carved with griffins. You hear soft footsteps and hushed voices, the kind that could topple dynasties. This isn't the open court of weddings or markets. It's the heart of political intrigue, and you're a ghost, hovering just out of sight. Around 490 BCE, queens like Amastris, wife of Xerxes I, were known for ruthless maneuvering, often shaping succession or punishing rivals. You imagine Amastris, her gold diadem glinting, leaning close to a trusted noblewoman as they plot to discredit a rival satrap. Her voice is low, each word a calculated risk. This isn't just gossip. It's a chess game where losing means exile, or worse. You'd think it's all dramatic showdowns, but it's subtle. One misplaced rumor and you're out of the game. You're already tense, clutching imaginary robes to blend into the shadows. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some queens used coded jewelry, like a pendant with a hidden clasp, to pass messages to allies. If it was intercepted, it was just a trinket. But the right eyes knew better. Historians still argue whether this was common or a tale spun by Greek scribes. Either way, you picture Amastris adjusting her pendant, her fingers brushing the clasp with a faint smile. You'd probably fumble the code and signal the wrong ally, sparking a palace riot. You creep closer, your sandals silent on the cool marble. The noblewoman nods, her eyes sharp as she memorizes Amastris' instructions. You recall Atosa's influence, how she secured Xerxes' throne. Amastris is her successor, wielding power in darker corners. Her plot might involve a forged tablet, or a well-timed banquet scandal, but the details are murky, even to you. You're struck by the contrast to Nasrin's village labor, or Layla's artistry. Here, power is a knife, wielded with a smile. You try to follow the whispers, but there, a tangle of old Persian and innuendo. You're just glad no one's asking you to join the scheme. A servant glides past, carrying a tray of pomegranates, their scent sharp in the heavy air. You freeze, heart pounding, but she doesn't glance your way. The palace is a maze of eyes. Every servant a potential spy. You recall the harem's guarded concubines, their own alliances forged in whispers. Amastris' world is grander, but no less treacherous. You chuckle, imagining yourself in her place. You'd probably spill the pomegranates, blurt the plan, and end up banished to a desert outpost. The queen's voice dips lower, mentioning a rival's son, too ambitious for his own good. You catch the word Bactria, a distant satrapy where loyalties waver. Her plan could shift the empire's balance, maybe even spark a rebellion. Historians debate how much queens drove such intrigues. Some say they were puppets of male advisors. Others argue they pulled the strings, using charm and fear. Watching a maestress, her posture rigid yet regal, you'd bet on the latter. Her presence fills the hall and you're in awe. Even if you're itching to bolt for safer ground, you shift, pressing against a carved pillar, its griffin seeming to glare. The noblewoman slips away, her mission clear, while a maestress lingers, staring into a lamp's flame. You wonder what drives her, loyalty to Xerxes, fear for her sons, or raw ambition. The palace's weight presses on you, its secrets too heavy. For one night, you recall Shirin's knotted cords, a simpler kind of cunning. A maestress's schemes are Persia's pulse, beating in these shadows. You'd love to hear the plan's outcome, but the lamp's flicker is lulling you. The corridors. Hush wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap in the palace's dark embrace. You slip from the palace's shadowed intrigue, a maestress's whispers fading as you find yourself in a dusty military camp on the edge of the Persian Empire, where the air smells of sweat, leather, and roasting mutton. It's dusk, and you're trailing a group of women wives, sisters, and mothers who support the vast armies of Xerxes' eye tents flap in the evening breeze, and the clatter of spears mixes with soldiers' laughter. These women aren't weaving pottery or plotting in halls. They're the unsung backbone of the camp, mending tunics, cooking, and keeping morale alive. You're about to see their world, where love and labor hold the line. Around 480 BCE, during campaigns like the invasion of Greece, Persian armies traveled with large entourages, including women who maintained the camp's rhythm. You watch a woman, let's call her Daria, knead dough over a portable clay oven. Her hands swift as she shapes flatbread for a dozen hungry soldiers. She's a captain's wife, her presence a reminder of home amid the chaos of war. Her work isn't just domestic, it's strategic, ensuring the men fight with full bellies and mended boots. You'd think it's all cooking and sewing, but it's survival. One bad meal and morale crumbles. You're already exhausted just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some camp women carried small bronze bells, tied to their belts, to signal their location in the sprawling camp. If one fell silent, it meant trouble, and you can bet the others came running. Historians still argue whether these were practical or a tradition from nomadic roots. Either way, you imagine Daria's bell jingling as she moves, a tiny beacon. In the dust, you'd probably lose yours in a tent flap and start a panic. So you're happy just listening. You settle near a fire, its warmth cutting the evening chill. Daria hands out bread, her smile weary but genuine as soldiers nod their thanks. You recall Nasreen's village, how her bread-bound neighbors. Daria's role is similar, but her stakes are higher, feeding men who might not return tomorrow. She pauses to mend a torn cloak, her needle flashing in the firelight. You're struck by her resilience, a contrast to a maestress's gilded schemes. These women don't wield power through plots, but through quiet acts that keep the army moving. You try to thread a needle in your mind, but it's a lost cause. You're just glad no one's asking you to stitch. A soldier approaches, offering a clay cup of watered wine in exchange for extra bread. Daria laughs, teasing him about his appetite, and the tension eases. Her humor is a weapon, softening the camp's edges. You recall Mahoon's birthing ceremony, how women shared strength. In crisis, here it's laughter over firelight, binding strangers into a makeshift family. You chuckle, imagining yourself joking with soldiers. You'd probably trip over a tent peg and become the camp's running gag. The camp hums as stars emerge, and Daria checks a pot of lentil stew, stirring with a wooden spoon. Her life is tethered to the army's rhythm. March, camp, repeat. She's not noble, but her work sustains the empire's might, just as Layla's pottery graces its tables. Historians debate how much agency camp women had. Some say they were mere followers. Others argue they negotiated supplies or even spied for commanders. Watching Daria's sharp glance at a passing officer, you'd bet she knows more than she lets on. Her quiet authority fills the fire's glow, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a soft bed, you shift, avoiding a stray ember on the ground. The camp's noise-gruff voices, clanging metal blends into a strange lullaby. Daria bell jingles as she moves to another task, her silhouette strong against the flames. You're starting to see how her life, like Shirin's or Vera's, weaves into Persia's strength. Her hands, rough from work, hold the camp together. You'd love to stay, share her stew, but the fire's warmth is lulling you. The camp's rhythm wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap by the flickering flames. You drift from the military camp's smoky warmth, Daria's jingling bell fading as you step into a candlelit banquet hall in Persepolis, where the air hums with laughter and the sweet strum of a lyre. It's evening, and you're swaying too. Melodies at a noblewoman's feast, where women gather to celebrate a recent victory. The hall glitters with silver trays of figs and saffron rice, and silk cushions line the floor, inviting you to linger. These women aren't toiling or plotting. They're reveling in music and dance, their movements a fleeting escape from duty. You're here to join the rhythm, if only as a wide-eyed guest. Around 490 BCE, banquets in the Achaemenid Empire were social cornerstones, and noble women often hosted women-only gatherings to share stories and showcase talents. You watch a woman, let's call her Pavana, glide across the floor, her robe swirling as she dances to a harp's delicate notes. Her steps are precise, a blend of grace and strength, taught since childhood to charm and entertain. This isn't just a party. It's a stage where alliances are cemented through shared joy. You'd think it's all carefree twirling, but it's work. One misstep, and you're the gossip of the court. You're already dizzy just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some dancers tied tiny bells to their ankles, their chimes believed to ward off evil spirits during festivities. If one fell off, it was a minor scandal, and you can bet the guests whispered. Historians still argue whether this was a common custom or reserved for lavish events. Either way, you imagine Parvane's bells tinkling as she spins, her smile masking the effort. You'd probably trip over your own feet and jangle like a runaway goat, so you're happy just clapping along. You settle on a cushion, the scent of rosewater and roasted lamb wrapping around you. Parvane's dance ends, and she joins a group of women singing a ballad about a mythical queen. Their voices weave a spell, and you recall Artistone's poetry lessons, how she trained to captivate. These women are doing the same, their music, a softer power than a mistress's schemes. You're struck by the contrast to Daria's camp, where laughter was a brief respite. Here, joy is the goal, even if it's fleeting. You try to hum along, but your tune's more croak than melody. You're just glad no one's asking you to sing. A servant offers a clay cup of pomegranate wine, its tartness grounding you in the moment. The women around you laugh, trading stories of errant husbands or clever daughters. You catch Parvaneh's eye, her kohl-lined gaze warm but sharp, sizing up her guests. She's not just a hostess, she's a diplomat, ensuring every woman leaves feeling valued. You recall Roxana's wedding, its ritual binding families. This banquet binds friends, a quieter but no less vital thread in Persia's web. You chuckle, imagining yourself hosting. You'd probably spill the wine and start a food fight by mistake. The lyre shifts to a slower tune, and another woman rises to dance, her hands tracing patterns in the air. The room feels lighter, the candlelight softening every face. These gatherings aren't just for fun. They're a space where women, free from male scrutiny, share secrets and strategies. Historians debate how much influence such events carried. Some say they were mere social fluff. Others argue they shaped court alliances. Watching Parvaneh's careful hospitality, you'd bet these nights shift more than just moods. Her grace holds the hall together, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a softer cushion, you shift, avoiding a stray fig on the floor. The music swells, and the women clap, their bangles clinking like a chorus. You're starting to see how Parvaneh's dance, like Layla's pottery or Nasrin's bread, weaves Persia's heart. Her steps carry stories, her laughter builds bonds. You'd love to stay, join the next song, but the wine's warmth is lulling you. The banquet's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap among the cushions. You glide away from the banquet's lilting melodies, Parvaneh's dance fading as you step into a sunlit archive in Susa, where clay tablets line cedar shelves and the air carries the faint must of old papyrus. It's morning, and you're navigating the surprising legal rights of women in ancient Persia, a web of customs and decrees that shaped their lives. A scribe, her stylus poised, records a contract for a woman nearby, her expression calm but resolute. This isn't the passion of a wedding or the rhythm of a market. It's the quiet power of law, and you're about to uncover how women wielded it in a world of kings and satraps around 500 BCE. The Achaemenid Empire had a sophisticated legal system, and women, especially nobles, could own property, initiate divorces, and manage inheritance. You watch the woman, let's call her Soraya, seal a tablet with her personal bronze stamp, claiming land from her late father's estate. Her rights aren't universal commoners faced tighter limits, but they're real, etched in cuneiform. This isn't just paperwork, it's autonomy, a shield against dependence in a patriarchal world. You'd think it's all dry legalities, but it's freedom. One wrong seal, and you're fighting a court battle. You're already jittery just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women used seals shaped like pomegranates, a nod to fertility and wealth, to mark their contracts. If the seal cracked, it was bad luck, and you can bet the scribes grumbled. Historians still argue whether these were status symbols or just decorative flair. Either way, you imagine Soraya pressing her pomegranate seal, her fingers steady as she claims her due. You'd probably smudge the clay and start a legal feud, so you're happy just observing. You settle near a low bench, the scribe's stylus scratching a rhythm as she notes Soraya's claim. You recall Anahita's estate, management, how she oversaw grain and wool. Soraya's power is similar, but it's codified, protected by law rather than custom. She could sell her land, lease it, or pass it to her daughter, rights that rivaled men's in scope. You're struck by the contrast to Nazarine's village toil, where survival trumped contracts. Here, Soraya's securing her future, her confidence, echoing a maestress's palace schemes. You try to read the tablet's cuneiform, but it's like decoding a cryptic puzzle. You're just glad no one's quizzing you on law. A breeze stirs the room, carrying the scent of cedar and ink. Soraya speaks, softly to the scribe, clarifying a boundary line. Her knowledge of her land's Egesivri, ditch and date impresses you. She's not just signing papers, she's mastering a system that could outlast her. You recall Shiren's knotted cords, her market cunning. Soraya's tools are tablets, but her goal is the same: control over her world. You chuckle, imagining yourself in court. You'd probably misread a clause and trade your land for a goat, then slink away in shame. The scribe hands Soraya a copy of the tablet, wrapped in linen for safekeeping. Women's legal rights weren't just for elites. Widows, like Soraya might be, could manage estates, and even commoners could appeal to local judges. But limits existed. Royal decrees often favored men in disputes. Historians debate how equal these rights truly were. Some say women's autonomy was revolutionary. Others argue it was tightly controlled by male overseers. Watching Soraya's firm nod, you'd bet she bends the rules to her favor, much like Shiren in the bazaar. Her quiet resolve fills the room, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a less dusty seat, you shift, avoiding a stray reed. On the floor, the archive hums with scribes' murmurs, a chorus of order in Susa's chaos. You're starting to see how Soraya's rights, like Lele's pottery or Vera's prayers, weave Persia's strength. Her tablet is a small victory, but it ripples outward, securing her family's place. You'd love to stay, read more tablets, but the ink's scent is lulling you. The archive's calm wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap among the shelves. You ease away from the archive's dusty calm, Soraya's pomegranate seal fading as you find yourself swaying on a camel's back along a sun-scorched trade route, where the air shimmers with heat and the Thames of desert dust. It's midday, and you're joining a caravan led by a merchant's daughter, a young woman steering her family's goods through Persia's vast web of commerce. The horizon stretches endless, dotted with pack animals laden with silk and spices. She rides, with a steady hand, her scarf fluttering in the dry wind. This isn't the palace's intrigue or the village's toil. It's a journey of risk and reward, and you're along for the dusty ride. Around 500 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire's royal road and trade routes linked Susa to distant lands, and women, especially from merchant families, sometimes led caravans. When men were absent, you watch your guide, let's call her Faraba, check a clay tablet listing her cargo: indigo from India, lapis from Bactria. Her role isn't just guiding camels, it's calculating tolls, dodging bandits, and charming checkpoint guards. This isn't a leisurely trip. It's a heist-cakes venture where one wrong turn means ruin. You'd think it's all adventure, but it's math and nerve. You're already parched, just squinting at the dunes. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women traders carried a small bronze whistle, blown to signal straying camels or warn of danger. If it cracked, it was bad luck, and you can bet the caravan grumbled. Historians still argue whether these were standard or a quirk of certain routes. Either way, you imagine Fariba tucking hers into her belt, her eyes scanning the horizon. You'd probably blow it too hard and startle the camels into a stampede. So you're happy just clinging to your saddle. You sway with the caravan's rhythm, the creak of leather and jingle of bells, a strange lullaby. Fariba calls to a drover, her voice cutting through the wind as she corrects the load on a swaying pack. You recall Shirin's bizarre haggling, how she mastered the market's pulse. Fariba's world is wilder, her deals struck under open skies with traders from lands you can't pronounce. She's young, maybe 20, but her confidence rivals Anahita's. You're struck by her ease in this male-dominated trek, a testament to her family's trust. You try to tally her cargo in your head, but numbers blur in the heat. You're just glad no one's asking you to navigate. A water stop looms, a cluster of palms around a well. Fariba dismounts, bartering with a local for fresh dates to feed. Her crew, her smile is disarming, but her words are sharp, securing a fair price. You catch the date's sweet scent, grounding you in the moment. You recall Parvane's banquet, how her dance wove bonds. Fariba's trades do the same, linking Persia to distant markets. You chuckle, imagining yourself bartering. You'd probably trade a camel for a handful of sand and call it a deal. Then trip into the well. The sun dips, painting the dunes gold. Fariba checks her tablet again, her stylus marking a completed trade. Her role isn't just economic, it's cultural, carrying stories and customs across borders. Historians debate how common female caravan leaders were. Some say they were rare, stepping in only in emergencies. Others argue merchant daughters trained for this life. Watching Fariba's steady hand, you'd bet she was born for the road. Her quiet command fills the caravan, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for shade, you shift, sand grating under your robe. The caravan moves on, the bells jingle, blending with Fariba's low commands. You're starting to see how her journey, like Soraya's legal winds or Lele's pottery, weaves Persia's strength. Her trades fueled the empire, her courage defying the desert's risks. You'd love to stay, hear her tales of far-off markets, but the heat's lulling you. The caravan's sway wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap under the endless sky. You sway away from the caravan's dusty trail, Fariba's bronze whistle fading as you step into a bustling kitchen in Persepolis, where the air hums with the sizzle of lamb and the sweet Thames of pomegranate molasses. It's late afternoon, and you're helping prepare a lavish feast for Persian elites. Guided by a seasoned cook whose hands move like a dancer's through spices and clay pots. The room is warm, filled with steam and chatter, as servants rush to ready platters for a noble's banquet. This isn't the desert's grit or the palace's schemes. It's the heart of hospitality, and you're about to taste the labor behind Persia's grandeur. Around 500 BCE, feasts in the Achaemenid Empire were displays of wealth, and women often oversaw the kitchens, crafting dishes to dazzle guests. You watch your guide, let's call her Golna, grind saffron into a fine powder, her fingers stained red from the delicate threads. She's not noble, but her meals shape the night's alliances, each dish a silent diplomat. This isn't just cooking, it's art, balancing flavors to impress satraps and queens. You'd think it's all tossing spices, but it's precision. One oversalted stew, and you're the talk of the court. You're already sweating, just stirring an imaginary pot. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some cooks tucked a small barley grain under their apron for luck, believing it ensured a flawless feast. If it fell out, it was a bad sign, and you can bet the servants whispered. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or a quirk of Persepolis's kitchens. Either way, you imagine Golna checking her grain, her eyes sharp as she tastes a broth. You'd probably drop yours in the stew and serve crunchy soup. So you're happy just watching. You settle near a clay oven, its heat brushing your skin as Golna shapes dough for flatbread. She layers it with sesame seeds, her movements swift, yet careful. You recall Parvaneh's banquet, how her dance charmed the guests. Golna's food does the same, each bite a spell to soften rivalries. Her menu includes roasted lamb with sumac, stuffed grape leaves, and a barley porridge sweetened with dates. You're struck by the contrast to Nasrin's simple village bread. Here, every dish is a statement, echoing Anahita's strategic hospitality. You try to memorize her recipe, but the spices blur. You're just glad no one's asking you to cook. A servant rushes in, balancing a tray of pistachios to garnish a rice dish. Golna nods, directing her to add a pinch of cinnamon. The kitchen's rhythm is chaotic yet precise, a dance of heat and haste. You catch the molasses's sticky sweetness, grounding you in the moment. You recall Daria's camp stew, how it fed soldiers. Golna's feast feeds egos, her work no less vital to the empire's pulse. You chuckle, imagining yourself at the oven. You'd probably burn the lamb and start a kitchen riot, then hide behind a sack of barley. Golna pauses, sampling a sauce with a wooden spoon. Her face lights up, but she adds a touch of mint, perfecting the balance. Her skill isn't just culinary. It's social, knowing which flavors flatter a visiting Bactrian lord or soothe a grumpy sate. Historians debate how much influence kitchen women wielded. Some say they were mere labor, others argue they shaped events by pleasing powerful palates. Watching Golna's quiet command, you'd bet she knows her power, even if it's cloaked in steam. Her kitchen rules the feast, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a cooler corner, you shift, dodging a stray splash of broth. The kitchen hums with laughter as a young cook teases another about a lumpy dumpling. You're starting to see how Golna's feast, like Fariba's trades or Layla's pottery, weaves Persia's heart. Her dishes carry stories, her flavors build bonds. You'd love to stay, sneak a bite of lamb, but the saffron scent is lulling you. The kitchen's warmth wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap amid the clatter of pots. You slip away from the kitchen's steamy chaos. Golna's saffron-stained fingers fading as you step into a vibrant festival in Ekbatana, where the air buzzes with laughter and the scent of blooming jasmine. It's twilight, and you're mingling at a women-only gathering, a rare night where Persia's ladies nobles, merchants' wives, even artisans, share gossip and revelry under lantern-lit trees. The crowd sways to the soft beat of a drum, and clay cups clink with watered wine. This isn't a formal banquet or a dusty trade route. It's a space of unguarded joy, and you're here to eavesdrop on the chatter that binds these women. Around 500 BCE, Ekbatana, a summer capital of the Achaemenid Empire, hosted festivals where women gathered to celebrate harvests or religious rites, free from male oversight. You watch a woman, let's call her Nargis, weave through the crowd, her bangles jingling as she shares a story about a clumsy suitor. Her laughter draws others, and soon a circle forms, trading tales of love and mischief. This isn't just gossip, it's a network, strengthening bonds that ripple into courts and markets. You'd think it's all carefree chatter, but it's power. One juicy rumor, and alliances shift. You're already dizzy just trying to keep up. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women wore bracelets with tiny charms shaped like sparrows, believed to carry their words to the gods for blessings. If a charm broke, it was bad luck, and you can bet the others noticed. Historians still argue whether these were common or tied to specific festivals. Either way, you imagine Nargis adjusting her sparrow charm, her eyes sparkling with mischief. You'd probably snap the bracelet and spend the night dodging glares. So you're happy just listening. You settle on a woven mat, the grass cool beneath you. Nargi's group grows, their voices a lively hum as they mock a pompous satraps. New robe, you recall Parven's banquet, how her dance wove harmony. This festival is looser, its laughter a balm for women bound by duty. Nargis, perhaps a merchant's wife, steers the talk to a recent caravan deal, hinting at a rival's shady tactics. You're struck by the contrast to Fariba's desert trades. Here, words are the currency, traded under starlight. You try to catch every quip, but the wine's tart scent distracts you. You're just glad no one's asking you to spill gossip. A young woman strums a sitar, its notes floating like fireflies. The crowd quiets, savoring the melody, and you catch Nargis whispering about a noblewoman's secret betrothal. These gatherings aren't just fun. They're intelligence hubs, where news travels faster than royal couriers. You recall Soraya's legal savvy, how she secured her land. Nargis's gossip is softer but no less strategic, shaping reputations with a well-timed jest. You chuckle, imagining yourself in the circle. You'd probably blurt something dull about the weather and clear the mat in seconds. The lanterns sway, casting golden patterns on the women's robes. A servant passes with a tray of honeyed almonds, their sweetness grounding you in the moment. These festivals, though rare, are vital, letting women like Nargis navigate their world's constraints. Historians debate their impact. Some say they were mere social outlets. Others argue they influenced politics through shared secrets. Watching Nargis's sly grin, you'd bet she's swaying more than just the crowd. Her charm holds the festival together, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a softer seat, you shift, brushing a stray petal from your robe. The sitar's tune slows, and the women clap, their voices rising in a playful song. You're starting to see how Nargis's gossip, like Golna's feasts or Lale's pottery, weaves Persia's heart. Her words carry power, her laughter builds trust. You'd love to stay, share an almond, but the jasmine's scent is lulling you. The festival's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap under the lantern-lit trees. You drift from Ecbatana's festive glow, Nargis's laughter fading as you step into a moonlit temple in Susa, where the air hums with whispered prayers and the scent of burning myrrh. It's midnight, and you're listening to tales of goddesses, mythical figures whose stories shape Persian beliefs and the lives of its women. A priestess, her robe shimmering with silver thread, recounts legends before a small group of devotees, their faces rapt. This isn't a bustling market or a lavish feast. It's a sacred space where myths weave meaning. And you're here to unravel their influence on Persia's daughters. Around 500 BCE, Zoroastrianism dominated the Achaemenid Empire, but older. Myths, including goddesses like Anahita, goddess of fertility and waters, lingered in cultural tales. You watch the priestess, let's call her Shirin, light a clay lamp as she describes Anahita's golden chariot, drawn by 4 white horses. Across the sky, her story isn't just folklore. It's a guide, inspiring women to embody strength and wisdom in their roles. This isn't mere storytelling. It's a mirror, reflecting ideals that echo in daily life. You'd think it's all dreamy tales, but it's grounding. One faltering word, and the devotee's faith wavers. You're already hushed, afraid to break the spell. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women offered tiny clay horse figurines at Anahita's shrines, believing they carried prayers to the goddess. If one cracked, it was a bad sign, and you can bet the whispers spread. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or tied to specific regions. Either way, you imagine Shirin placing a figurine carefully, her hands steady in the lamplight. You'd probably drop it and start a temple panic, so you're happy just listening. You settle on a woven mat, the temple's cool stone soothing your feet. Shirin's voice rises, weaving Anahita's tale with that of Ardwissa, a river spirit, who blessed crops. You recall Vera's fire rituals, how they bound Persia's soul. These myths do the same, offering models for women like Nasreen or Parvane, who navigate their worlds with quiet ferocity. Shirin's story paints Anahita as both nurturer and warrior, a duality that resonates with the devotees' own lives. You're struck by the contrast to Nargis's gossip, which shaped social bonds. Here, myths shape spirits. You try to follow the tale, but its cadence is hypnotic. You're just glad no one's asking you to recite. A devotee passes a tray of rosewater, its scent mingling with myrrh. You inhale, grounded in the temple's calm. Shirin shifts to a story of Mithra, a male deity, but ties it back to Anahita's influence, showing how goddesses empower even men's tales. You recall Roxana's wedding, its rituals steeped in divine favor. These myths aren't just stories. They're the empire's heartbeat, guiding women through births, feasts, and battles. You chuckle, imagining yourself as a priestess. You'd probably mix up the gods and turn Anahita into a chariot-racing baker. Shirin's lamp flickers as she describes Anahita's sacred springs, where women bathed to seek blessings. The devotees nod, some clutching horse figurines, their faith palpable. These tales aren't just for temples, they're whispered in homes, shaping how women see their roles as mothers, traders, or queens. Historians debate how much goddesses influence daily life. Some say they were symbolic. Others argue they gave women divine legitimacy to challenge norms. Watching Shirin's poised delivery, you'd bet these myths embolden more than prayers. Her voice carries authority, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a softer mat, you shift, avoiding a stray pebble on the floor. The temple hums, with soft murmurs as devotees share their own tales, linking Anahita to their lives. You're starting to see how Shirin's myths, like Golna's feasts or Ferebus trades, weave Persia's heart. Her stories carry power, her words shape dreams. You'd love to stay, offer a clay horse, but the myrrh's scent is lulling you. The temple's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap under Anahita's watchful stars. You glide away from the temple's mythic whispers, Shirin's tales of Anahita fading as you step into a gilded chamber in Persepolis, where the air shimmers with rosewater and the clink of gold goblets. It's noon, and you're adapting as a Greek wife in Xerxes' court, a foreign bride navigating the labyrinth of Persian customs. The room hums with soft chatter, noblewomen casting curious glances at your unfamiliar robes. You're an outsider, your accent a stark contrast to their melodic old Persian, yet your role binds distant lands to the empire. This isn't a festival or a kitchen. It's a delicate dance of assimilation, and you're learning the steps. Around 480 BCE, Persian kings, like Xerxes, married foreign women, often Greek or Babylonian, to cement alliances, and these brides faced the challenge of blending into court life. You imagine yourself as Calliope, a Greek noblewoman wed to a Persian prince. Your linen chiton feels out of place among their flowing silks, but you've adopted a sapphire diadem to signal your status. Your days are spent learning court etiquette, from bowing to the great king to mastering the art of subtle flattery. This isn't just marriage, it's diplomacy, where one wrong gesture could sour a treaty. You'd think it's all fancy banquets, but it's a tightrope. You're already wobbly just imagining their stares. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some foreign brides carried a small clay vial of their homeland's soil, tucked into their robes for comfort. If it spilled, it was a bad omen, and you can bet the court whispered. Historians still argue whether this was common or a Greek-specific habit. Either way, you picture Calliope clutching her vial, her fingers brushing the clay as she faces a room of skeptical nobles. You'd probably drop it and scatter dirt across the marble. Sparking a diplomatic incident, you settle on a cushioned bench, the scent of myrrh grounding you. A Persian noblewoman, perhaps a cousin of a mistress, offers a goblet of pomegranate wine, her smile polite but probing. You recall Parvaneh's banquet, how her hospitality masked strategy. Here, every gesture is a test, and you're learning fast. You sip the wine, mimicking the noblewoman's delicate hold, and nod at her. Praise of Xerxes' latest victory. You're not just a wife. You're a bridge, linking Greece's city-states to Persia's might. You try to recall the proper bow, but your Greek instincts scream for a handshake. You're just glad no one's asking you to recite royal titles. A servant glides by, adjusting a tapestry of a lion hunt. You notice Calliope's hands, adorned with Persian bangles, but still calloused from Greek olive harvests. She's adapting, learning cuneiform to read court decrees, a skill Artistone mastered in her lessons. You're struck by the contrast to Sarai's legal savvy, which was rooted in Persian law. Calliope's power lies in her ability to blend cultures, softening tensions with a well-timed myth about Athena. You chuckle, imagining yourself in her chiton. You'd probably mispronounce satrap and start a feud over dessert. The noblewoman leans closer, asking about Greek oracles. You answer carefully, weaving a tale of Delphi's mists, aware that your words could travel to Xerxes. Foreign brides weren't just ornaments, they were informants, their stories shaping policy. Historians debate how much influence they wielded. Some say they were decorative pawns, others argue they swayed kings through private counsel. Watching Calliope's measured smile, you'd bet she's playing the court like a lyre. Her quiet grace fills the room, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching to loosen your too-tight diadem, you shift, the bench's silk slippery under you. The chamber hums with soft laughter, but the noble women's eyes never stop assessing. You're starting to see how Calliope's role, like Pharaoh's trades or Nargis's gossip, weaves Persia's strength. Her presence ties empires, her words bridge worlds. You'd love to stay, learn her next Greek tale, but the rose scent is lulling you. The chamber's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap amid the court's watchful eyes. You slip away from the court's gilded scrutiny, Calliope's sapphire diadem fading as you find yourself in a quiet Susa courtyard, where the air carries the faint scent of wilting jasmine and the weight of grief. It's dusk, and you're mourning as a widow under Persian customs, a woman navigating loss in a world that expects her to rebuild. The courtyard is small, its mud brick walls lit by a single oil lamp. You sit beside a woman, let's call her Bahar, her face shadowed, as she arranges a tray of barley and rose petals for a memorial rite. This isn't a banquet or a trade route. It's a tender reckoning with death, and you're here to share her sorrow. Around 500 BCE, widows in the Achaemenid Empire faced complex customs, balancing mourning with practical survival, especially if they held property. Bahar, perhaps a merchant's widow, wears a simple linen robe, her usual bangles gone as a sign of grief. She scatters barley on a clay altar, honoring her late husband per Zoroastrian rites that ensure his soul's peace. Her role now shifts, managing his trade contracts, raising their children, and dodging suitors eyeing her land. This isn't just mourning, it's a test of resilience, where tears must wait. You'd think it's all quiet weeping, but it's strategy. One misstep, and her family's future crumbles. You're already heavy-hearted just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some widows tied a single black cord around their wrist during mourning, believed to ward off restless spirits. If it snapped, it was a bad omen, and you can bet the neighbors whispered. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or a regional custom. Either way, you imagine Bahar knotting her cord, her fingers trembling slightly. You'd probably tangle it and spark a village rumor. So you're happy, just sitting silently. You settle on a woven mat, the lamps flicker, casting soft shadows. Bahar murmurs a prayer, her voice steady despite the pain in her eyes. You recall Soraya's legal savvy, how she secured her estate. Bahar's challenge is similar, but her widowhood adds urgency. She must prove her competence to skeptical scribes and in. She's inherited her husband's spice trade, a small but vital business. You're struck by the contrast to Fariba's caravan leadership, which brimmed with adventure. Here, Bahar's fight is private, fought in ledgers and quiet rituals. You try to imagine her grief, but it's too vast. You're just glad no one's asking you to pray. A neighbor slips in, offering a clay bowl of lentil stew, a gesture of support. Bahar nods, her smile faint but grateful. You catch the stew's earthy warmth, grounding you in the moment. Widows weren't just mourners. They were pillars, holding families together when loss struck. You recall Nasreen's village, how women shared burdens. Bahar's courtyard is her village, and she's weaving it tight with every shared meal and prayer. You chuckle, imagining yourself in her place. You'd probably burn the stew and cry over the barley, making a mess of both rite and dinner. Bahar rises, placing a rose petal on the altar, its fragrance mingling with the lamp's smoke. She mourned for a year, but her work starts now. Meeting traders, signing tablets, ensuring her children's dowries. Her strength echoes Anahita's, who balanced estate and status. Historians debate how much freedom widows had. Some say they gained rare autonomy, managing wealth unchecked. Others argue social pressures kept them tethered. Watching Bahar's steady hands, you'd bet she's carving her own path, even if it's lined with grief. Her quiet resolve fills the courtyard, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a softer mat, you shift, the cool stone easing your tired legs. The courtyard hums with crickets, a gentle chorus to Bahar's prayers. You're starting to see how her widowhood, like Narcissus, gossip, or Gulnar's feasts, weaves Persia's heart. Her rituals honor the past, her labor secures the future. You'd love to stay, share her stew, but the jasmine's scent is lulling you. The lamp's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap in the courtyard's mournful peace. You drift from Bahar's somber courtyard, the scent of jasmine fading as you step into a sweltering workyard in Persepolis, where the air reeks of sweat and sun-baked stone. It's midday, and you're laboring as an enslaved woman, hauling water for masons, building the empire's grand palaces. Your hands grip a heavy clay jug, and dust coats your tattered linen tunic. Around you, other women mix mortar or carry reeds, their faces etched with exhaustion. This isn't the elegance of queens or the rhythm of festivals. It's the grim reality of those bound by chains. And you're here to feel their struggle. Around 500 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire relied on enslaved labor, often captives from conquered lands like Egypt or Ionia, to construct monuments like Persepolis. You imagine yourself as Khepri, an Egyptian woman taken after a campaign. Your day begins at dawn, fetching water from a distant well to cool the mason's tools. Your overseer, a gruff Persian, barks orders, his whip coiled but ever present. This isn't just work, it's survival, where every drop spilled could mean a missed meal. You'd think it's all mindless toil, but it's cunning. One moment of defiance, and you're punished. You're already aching just carrying the jug. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some enslaved women wove tiny knots into their hair, a secret tally of days served, or a charm for freedom. If an overseer noticed, it meant trouble, and you can bet they watched closely. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or a myth born of hope. Either way, you picture Khepri braiding a knot, her fingers quick under her scarf. You'd probably fumble it and earn a glare, so you're happy just trudging along. You shuffle through the yard, the sun searing your neck. Khepri pours water into a trough, her movements slow to conserve strength. You recall Nazarine's village labor, how her bread fed a community. Khepri's work builds empires, but she never sees the glory. Her life is a stark contrast to Soraya's legal victories or Faraba's caravan adventures. Yet, like them, she finds ways to endure, sharing whispered songs with other women during brief rests. You try to hum along, but the dust chokes you. You're just glad no one's asking you to haul more water. A mason calls for reeds, and Khepri joins a group weaving them into mats for scaffolding. Their hands move in sync, a quiet rebellion in their shared rhythm. You catch the reeds dry, scent grounding you in the moment. You recall Lele's pottery, how her art adorned palaces. Khepri's labor shapes the same halls, but her name will never be known. She pauses, wiping sweat with a rag, her eyes scanning for the overseer. You're struck by her resilience, a spark that survives this crushing life. You chuckle, imagining yourself weaving reeds. You'd probably tangle them into a nest and get sent to the quarries. The yard hums with clinking chisels and low murmurs. Khepri's group finishes a mat, earning a rare nod from a mason. Enslaved women weren't just laborers. They were mothers, sisters, weaving small acts of care, sharing water, binding a friend's wound into their days. Historians debate their agency. Some say they had none, mere tools of the empire. Others argue they carved out subtle resistance through sabotage or secret bonds. Watching Khepri's steady hands, you'd bet she's defying the system in her own way. Her quiet strength fills the yard, and you're in awe, even if you're itching for shade. You shift, the jug's weight biting into your shoulder. The workyard's noise grunts, hammers, footsteps blends into a harsh lullaby. You're starting to see how Khepri's struggle, like Baha's grief or Narcissus' gossip, weaves Persia's heart, even if it's from the shadows. Her labor builds the empire, her endurance a silent testament. You'd love to stay, share her water, but the heat's lulling you. The yard's dust wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap under a half-built wall. You slip away from the workyard's grueling dust, Khepri's knotted hair fading as you find yourself in a dimly lit tavern in Susa. where the air hums with hushed voices and the sour temps of barley beer. It's midnight, and you're whispering of women resisting royal decrees, their defiance a spark in the empire's shadows. The tavern's mud-brick walls are stained with smoke, and a single oil lamp flickers on a scarred table. You're among a small group of women artisans, widows, even a merchant's sister plotting quiet rebellion against a new tax edict. This isn't a palace or a temple. It's a crucible of courage, and you're here to hear their plans. Around 490 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire's decrees, like taxes to fund wars, often sparked unrest, and women, though rarely in open revolt, found subtle ways to resist. You watch a woman, let's call her Zora, lean forward, her voice low as she suggests hiding grain from tax collectors. She's no noble, but her words carry weight, honed by years of dodging officials in Susa's markets. This isn't loud rebellion, it's survival, a game of wits against the empire's reach. You'd think it's all bold speeches, but it's whispers, one wrong listener, and you're in chains. You're already nervous just sitting here. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women used knotted threads, tucked into their sleeves, to signal allies about safe meeting spots. If a knot unraveled, it meant danger, and you can bet they scattered. Historians still argue whether this was widespread or a trick of urban rebels. Either way, you imagine Zora checking her thread, her fingers brushing the knots with care. You'd probably tie a bow by mistake and lead everyone to a camel's stable. So you're happy just listening. You settle on a creaky stool, the beer's faint fizz grounding you. Zora's group includes a weaver who suggests mislabeling goods to dodge taxes, and a widow who knows a scribe willing to forge records. You recall Bahar's widowhood, how she navigated loss with grit. Zora's defiance is bolder, yet it echoes the same resolve. These women aren't storming palaces like a mistress might. They're eroding the system from within, grain by grain. You're struck by the contrast to Khepri's enslaved toil, where resistance was a secret knot. Here, it's a shared plan, fragile but fierce. You try to follow their code words, but they're a riddle. You're just glad no one's asking. You to spy. A serving girl passes, her eyes darting as she refills a clay mug. She's part of the plot, slipping news of royal patrols to Zora. You catch the beer's sharp scent, anchoring you in the tavern's tension. You recall Nargis's festival gossip, how it shaped alliances. Zora's whispers do the same, binding these women against a common foe. You chuckle, imagining yourself in their scheme. You'd probably spill the beer and blurt the plan to a tax collector, then flee to the desert. Zora outlines a plan to bribe a minor official, her voice steady despite the risk. Her group nods, their faces a mix of fear and fire. Resistance wasn't just about taxes. It was about dignity, reclaiming power in a world of decrees. Historians debate how effective these acts were. Some say they were mere ripples, easily crushed. Others argue they forced kings to soften edicts. Watching Zora's fierce gaze, you'd bet she's shaking more than she seems. Her quiet rebellion fills the tavern, and you're in awe even if you're itching for a less smoky corner. You shift, the stool wobbling under you. The tavern's murmurs blend with the lamp's flicker, a secret pulse in Susa's night. You're starting to see how Zora's defiance, like Faraba's trades or Shiran's myths, weaves Persia's heart, even if it's in the dark. Her whispers challenge empires, her courage a hidden flame. You'd love to stay, hear the plan unfold, but the beer's scent is lulling you. The tavern's hush wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap in the shadows of rebellion. You slip away from the tavern's smoky whispers, Zora's knotted threads fading as you step into a grand audience hall in Persepolis, where the air sparkles with the scent of frankincense and the rustle of silk. It's mid-morning, and you're watching a queen negotiate with foreign envoys. Her words a delicate weave of charm and steel. The hall is vast, its columns carved with lotus blooms, and sunlight streams through high windows, glinting off her gold diadem. She sits on a cushioned throne, flanked by scribes, as ambassadors from distant lands bow low. This isn't a market hustle or a secret rebellion. It's high-stakes diplomacy, and you're here to witness her mastery. Around 490 BCE, queens like Amestris, wife of Xerxes I, occasionally led diplomatic talks, especially when male royals were absent or sought a softer touch. You imagine Amestris, her kohl-lined eyes sharp, addressing a Median envoy about a border dispute. Her voice is calm, but each phrase is a calculated move, offering trade concessions while securing loyalty. This isn't just negotiation, it's theater, where every smile hides a strategy. You'd think it's all polite chatter, but it's power. One wrong word, and alliances crumble. You're already on edge just watching her. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some queens gifted envoys with tiny silver cups etched with their personal seal, as a subtle reminder of their influence. If a cup was misplaced, it was a diplomatic slight, and you can bet the court buzzed. Historians still argue whether this was standard or reserved for critical talks. Either way, you picture Amestris sliding a cup across the table, her gaze unwavering. You'd probably knock it over and start an international incident. So you're happy just observing. You settle behind a carved screen, the frankincense grounding you in the hall's tension. The Median envoy, draped in wool-dyed crimson, presents a tablet outlining grazing rights. Amestris counters with a proposal for shared wells, her tone disarming yet firm. You recall her palace schemes, how she plotted in shadows. Here, her power is public, a performance rivaling Parven's banquet. Dance. She's not just a queen, she's a statesman, balancing Persia's might with Median pride. You try to follow her logic, but it's like untangling a diplomatic knot. You're just glad no one's asking you to mediate. A scribe hands Amestris a clay tablet, and she scans it with practiced ease, her fingers tracing cuneiform. You catch the faint clink of her bangles, echoing Calliope's Greek-adapted jewelry. Diplomacy here isn't just words, it's presence, every gesture a signal. You recall Soraya's legal savvy, how she secured her land. Amestris's stakes are higher, her deals shaping empires. You chuckle, imagining yourself in her throne. You'd probably misread the tablet and trade Persepolis for a herd of goats, then flee in embarrassment. The envoy nods, softened by an offer of silk tribute. Her diplomacy isn't just about borders, it's about trust, weaving Persia into a web of allies. Historians debate how often queens led such talks. Some say they were rare stand-ins. Others argue they were trusted voices in complex negotiations. Watching Amestris's measured smile, you'd bet she's no mere substitute. Her authority fills the hall, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a less formal seat, you shift. The screens would cool against your back. The hall hums with scribes, murmurs, and the envoy's accented thanks. You're starting to see how Amestris's diplomacy, like Zora's defiance or Fereba's trades, weaves Persia's heart. Her words bind nations, her poise secures peace. You'd love to stay, hear her next deal, but the frankincense's scent is lulling you. The hall's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap amid the echoes of empires. You glide away from the audience hall's regal tension, a maestress's silver cup fading as you step into a lush private garden in Susa, where the air hums with the scent of blooming roses and the trickle of a marble fountain. It's late afternoon, and you're strolling through a noble woman's paradise, a sanctuary where she escapes the demands of court and kin. The garden is a tapestry of color pomegranate trees, lavender bushes, and paths lined with turquoise tiles. Your guide, a woman of rank, moves slowly, her silk robe brushing the grass. This isn't a bustling market or a solemn rite. It's a haven of leisure, and you're here to soak in its calm. Around 500 BCE, Persian nobles, including women, cherished gardens as symbols of wealth and serenity, often designing them as personal retreats. You watch your guide, let's call her Azar, pause by a lotus pond, her fingers trailing the water as she hums a soft tune. Her garden isn't just a luxury, it's a statement, a space where she hosts friends or reflects alone, free from the empire's weight. This isn't just lounging, it's power, a quiet claim to control her world. You'd think it's all idle daydreams, but it's deliberate. One neglected bloom, and her status dips. You're already relaxed, just breathing the rose-scented air. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some noble women hid tiny glass beads in their garden soil, believed to bless the plants with vigor. If one surfaced unexpectedly, it was a bad omen, and you can bet the servants whispered. Historians still argue whether this was common or a fad among Susa's elite. Either way, you imagine Azar scattering a bead, her smile sly as she tends. Her roses, you'd probably bury it too deep and kill the plant, so you're happy just wandering the paths. You settle on a stone bench, the fountain's ripple grounding you in the garden's peace. Azar clips a sprig of mint, tucking it into her sleeve for later. You recall Pavana's banquet, how her dance wove joy. Azar's garden does the same, its beauty a gift to guests who carry her influence beyond these walls. She's not plotting like a maestress, but her hospitality shapes alliances, much like Narcissus' festival gossip. You're struck by the contrast. To Kepri's workyard toil, where rest was a stolen moment. Here, rest is the goal, crafted with care. You try to sketch the lotus in your mind, but it's a smudge. You're just glad no one's asking you to garden. A servant glides by, offering a clay cup of cooled sherbet, its citrus temps, a sharp delight. Azar sips hers, her eyes scanning the garden for imperfections. Her leisure isn't carefree. She oversees every detail: irrigation channels, rare bulbs from Bactriot to maintain this Eden. You recall Golna's kitchen, how her feasts fed egos. Azar's garden feeds dreams, a softer but no less vital art. You chuckle, imagining yourself pruning roses. You'd probably snip the wrong stem and turn her paradise into a thorn patch. Azar strolls to a shaded pavilion, where a small loom holds a half-woven tapestry of a deer. She weaves for pleasure, her fingers slow but skilled, a nod to Lele. Pottery craft. Gardens weren't just for beauty. They were creative spaces where women like Azar found solace in small acts. Historians debate how much time noble women spent in such retreats. Some say they were rarely free from duties. Others argue gardens were their true domains, rivaling male councils. Watching Azar's serene focus, you'd bet this is her kingdom. Her quiet grace fills the garden, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a cushier seat, You shift, the benches stone cool against your legs. The garden hums with bees, and the fountain's soft song, a lullaby of peace. You're starting to see how Azar's paradise, like Zora's defiance or Faraba's trades, weaves Persia's heart. Her garden nurtures bonds, her calm shapes influence. You'd love to stay, sip more sherbet, but the rose's scent is lulling you. The garden's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap by the lotus pond. You drift from Azar's blooming garden, the lotus pond's ripple fading as you step into a modest home in Susa, where the air carries the warm scent of baking bread and the soft creak of a wooden chair. It's evening, and you're reflecting. As an elder woman sharing wisdom, her voice a gentle guide for younger kin gathered around a low table. The room is cozy, lit by clay lamps, with woven rugs softening the mud brick floor. She sits, her silver hair catching the light, her hands tracing a worn bangle as she speaks. This isn't a palace or a festival. It's a hearth of memory, and you're here to listen to her lessons. Around 500 BCE, elder women in the Achaemenid Empire were revered as keepers of family law, their advice shaping decisions from marriages to disputes. You watch your guide. Let's call her Roshan, recount a tale of her youth when she outwitted a greedy trader to save her family's grain. Her words are slow, deliberate, weaving practical advice with humor for her grandchildren. This isn't just storytelling, it's legacy, passing strength to the next generation. You'd think it's all nostalgic chatter, but it's vital. One forgotten lesson, and her kin might falter. You're already captivated just hearing her voice. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some elder women gifted their daughters tiny clay pendants, etched with a family symbol to seal their teachings. If one broke, it was a bad sign, and you can bet the family worried. Historians still argue whether this was common or tied to specific clans. Either way, you imagine Roshan slipping a pendant to her granddaughter, her eyes twinkling with pride. You'd probably drop it and start a family debate. So you're happy just sitting quietly. You settle on a cushion, the bread's warmth grounding you in the room's intimacy. Roshan's tale shifts to a drought year, when she bartered rugs for water, teaching her kin to value resourcefulness. You recall Bahar's widowhood, how she rebuilt through grit. Roshan's wisdom is softer, yet it echoes that resilience, guiding. Her family, like Anahita, guided her estates. Her stories aren't just personal, they're survival tools, rooted in Persia's cycles of feast and famine. You're struck by the contrast to Zora's tavern rebellion, which burned bright but brief. Here, wisdom endures, a slow flame. You try to memorize her advice, but it's a tapestry of wit and warning. You're just glad no one's asking you to teach. A young girl offers a clay cup of mint tea, its sharp scent cutting the bread's richness. Roshan sips, her smile warm as she teases the girl about her clumsy paw. The room laughs, a bond tightening round the table. You recall Narcissus festival, how gossip wove friendships. Roshan's stories do the same, knitting her family into a unit against life's uncertainties. You chuckle, imagining yourself sharing tales. You'd probably ramble about lost sandals and bore the kids to sleep, missing the point entirely. Voice softens, warning of pride's dangers, a lesson from a failed marriage she mediated years ago. Her role isn't just grandmotherly, it's judicial, settling disputes with a wisdom that rivals Soraya's legal savvy. Elder women like her were consulted on everything from dowries to land splits, their word often final. Historians debate their authority. Some say it was informal, limited by men. Others argue elders held near sacred sway in families. Watching Roshan's steady gaze, you'd bet her counsel shapes more than her home. Her quiet power fills the room, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for a softer cushion, you shift the rugs weave pressing into your legs. The lamps flicker, and the children lean closer, hanging on Roshan's words. You're starting to see how her wisdom, like Azar's garden or Farabas trades, weaves Persia's heart. Her stories carry history, her lessons build futures. You'd love to stay, sip more tea, but the bread scent is lulling you. The hearth's glow wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap by the table's edge. You ease away from Roshan's cozy hearth, the scent of mint tea fading as you slip into the shadows of a moonlit alley in Persepolis, where the air hums with the faint clink of armor and the musk of cedar smoke. It's deep night, and you're uncovering the tale of a female spy, a forgotten heroine whose whispers shaped Persian wars. You crouch beside a cloaked figure, her eyes sharp under a hood, as she passes a clay tablet to a waiting courier. This isn't a garden's calm or a widow's grief. It's a world of secrets and sacrifice, and you're here to trace her daring steps. Around 480 BCE, during campaigns like Xerxes' invasion of Greece, spies were vital to the Achaemenid Empire, and women, often overlooked, could slip through enemy lines. You imagine your guide, let's call her Mitra, a low-born woman trained to blend into crowds. She's no queen like Amistris, but her reports on Greek troop movements, scribbled in coded cuneiform, sway battles. Her mission tonight is to warn of a Spartan ambush, a secret that could save thousands. This isn't just espionage. It's survival, where one wrong glance means death. You'd think it's all cloak and dagger thrills, but it's dread. You're already jittery just hiding here. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some female spies hid messages in hollowed-out loom weights, passed off as harmless tools. If one cracked open, it was a disaster, and you can bet the guards pounced. Historians still argue whether this was common or a rare trick of desperate agents. Either way, you picture Mitra tucking a weight under her cloak, her fingers steady despite her racing heart. You'd probably drop it and scatter the message, outing yourself in seconds. So you're happy just watching. You shift closer, the alley's cool stone grounding you in the moment. Mitra's courier vanishes into the dark, and she lingers, scanning. 4 pursuers. You recall Zora's Tavern rebellion, how her whispers defied decrees. Mitra's defiance is deadlier, her secret's a weapon against Persia's foes. She's not noble, yet her work echoes on Ahita's strategic oversight, guiding armies from the shadows. You're struck by the contrast to Roshan's elder wisdom, shared openly with kin. Mitra's knowledge is buried, known only to a few. You try to decode her tablet in your mind, but it's a scribble of fear. You're just glad no one's asking you to spy. A distant dog barks, and Mitra freezes, her hand brushing a dagger hidden in her sash. You catch the cedar's smoky scent, a reminder of temple rites, but here it cloaks danger. You recall Kepri's enslaved toil, her quiet knots a small rebellion. Mitra's knots are messages, tying her to a network of unseen allies. You chuckle, imagining yourself as a spy. You'd probably trip over your cloak and shout the code word, alerting every guard in Persepolis. Mitra slips away, her footsteps silent on the dust. Her life is a string of risks, bribing sentries, dodging Greek scouts, living with the weight of betrayal. Yet she persists, driven by loyalty or perhaps a promise of freedom. Historians debate how many women served as spies. Some say they were rare, used only in desperation. Others argue their invisibility made them ideal agents. Watching Mitra's swift retreat, you'd bet she's one of many. Her name lost, but her impact carved in Persia's victories. Her quiet courage fills the alley, and you're in awe. Even if you're itching for safer ground, you shift, the alley's chill seeping into your bones. The night hums with crickets and the faint clatter of a distant patrol. You're starting to see how Mitra's espionage, like Azar's garden or Narcissus' gossip, weaves Persia's heart, even if it's unseen. Her secrets shield empires, her daring a hidden spark. You'd love to stay, follow her next drop, but the cedar's scent is lulling you. The alley's hush wraps around you, and you're drifting, ready for a nap in the spy's fleeting shadow. You slip from the alley's tense shadows, Mitra's cloaked figure fading as you find yourself in a quiet Persepolis courtyard, where the air hums with the soft rustle of palm fronds and the distant murmur of a city at rest. It's twilight, and you're pondering the legacy of Persia's women, their lives, a tapestry of strength woven through the empire's heart. You sit on a cool stone bench, a clay lamp flickering nearby, casting golden light on a carved relief of a lioness. This isn't a spy's mission or a noble's garden. It's a moment to reflect on the women who shaped history's shadows, and you're here to trace their enduring mark. Around 500 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire thrived on the labor, wit, and courage of its women, from queens to slaves, each leaving ripples that outlasted their names. You imagine their stories converging here: Attis's throne, Nazrin's bread, Mitra's secrets. Their legacy isn't in monuments, but in the empire's pulse alliances forged. Families fed, battles won through whispered plans. This isn't just history. It's a chorus of lives, each voice vital to Persia's song. You'd think it's all grand deeds, but it's quiet acts, too. One overlooked thread, and the tapestry frays. You're already humbled, just sitting here. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some women left tiny handprints in clay bricks, hidden in palace walls, as a silent claim to their labor. If one was found, it sparked tales of luck, and you can bet the builders smiled. Historians still argue whether this was intentional or accidental artistry. Either way, you picture a woman like Khepri pressing her palm, her mark enduring beyond her chains. You'd probably smudge the clay and leave a paw print. So you're happy just gazing at the lioness. You lean back, the lamp's glow warming. Your face, you recall a maestress's diplomacy, how her words bound nations. Her legacy echoes in Zora's defiance, Roshan's wisdom, each woman a thread in Persia's strength. You're struck by the contrast to Khepri's toil, her handprint, a fleeting cry against oblivion. Yet all their acts, grand or small, built the empire, from Shiran's myths to Golna's feasts. You try to count their contributions, but they're a constellation, too vast to grasp. You're just glad no one's asking you to weave their tale. A breeze carries the scent of dust and dates, grounding you in the courtyard's calm. You recall Feriba's caravan, her trades linking distant lands. Her journeys, like Azar's garden or Narcissus' gossip, wove bonds that held Persia tight. These women weren't just survivors. They were architects, their lives shaping a world that still whispers their names, even if scribes forgot them. You chuckle, imagining yourself leaving a legacy. You'd probably trip over a brick and leave a dent, not a handprint, then laugh it off. The lioness relief seems to watch you, its eyes carved with quiet power. Women's legacies weren't always inked in cuneiform. They lived in daughters taught, fields sown, secrets kept. Historians debate their impact. Some say they were sidelined, mere shadows of men. Others argue they were the empire's spine, bending but never breaking. Watching the lamp's steady flame, you'd bet on the latter. Their strength fills the courtyard, and you're in awe, even if you're itching for a softer bench as the stars emerge. The courtyard softens, its edges blurring in the twilight's embrace. You feel the weight of their stories settle, not heavy but warm, like a woven blanket. The palm fronds sway, their rustle a lullaby, and the lamp's glow dims, inviting rest. You're no longer tracing their lives, but drifting among them, each woman's voice a gentle hum. From Atasa's throne to Capri's chains, they built a world that cradles you now. Let their strength ease you, their courage a pillow for your dreams. The courtyard fades, the lioness's gaze softens, and you're slipping into sleep, wrapped in Persia's timeless heart. Asterisk, sweet dreams.